1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la. Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la.
Good morning, guys.
Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la. Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la.
Hey, guys, I'm James Hake of the Hake Report. It is the fourth hour of the Jesse Lee Peterson Show, Tuesday, August 6th, 2019. And I have some creepy stuff to show you guys. And then I will get to your calls, 888-775-3773. If you were watching the opening credits, you saw a hint of the creepy, Big Brother-ish, terrible globalist type of nonsense that I'm going to get to. But first, I want to get to some stuff that I mentioned yesterday. Very briefly, I want to get into a little bit more depth. Red flag laws are no good. One of the guys in the chat, Lewis, I think, reminded everybody yesterday that there was somebody who's already been killed by the cops over a struggle an enforcement of the red flag law. Let me explain that better, hopefully. There was one man who was killed in a shootout when police arrived to confiscate his guns. Red flag laws allow authorities to take away a man's guns if people think he might hurt himself or others. And by people, I mean family. Some judge may think so. I mean, it's usually enforced. The order is issued by a judge, right? A liberal judge usually. Activist, anti-gun judge. You know, these judges that don't respect the Second Amendment, the Constitution. Sometimes it could be a doctor or an expert or a psychologist. It could be anybody, practically. And usually these people aren't, in my opinion, are not to be trusted. And Maryland already has red flag laws. So according to CBS Baltimore, I have the headline that I can show you guys. November 5th, 2018. Maryland's red flag law turns deadly. Officer kills a man who refused to turn in his gun. So a 61-year-old man is dead after he was shot by an officer. This is from CBS Baltimore. Trying to enforce Maryland's new red flag law in Ferndale Monday morning. That was back in November. Anne Arundel County Police confirmed that the police-involved shooting happened at 5:17 a.m. They show up at his house at 5 in the morning. November. It's still dark, probably. I have to assume. So this is what it says. According to the police, 2 officers serving a new extreme risk protective order, which is a red flag law, a Maryland protective order to remove guns from a household, shot and killed the man listed on that order. So much for protecting himself and others. I mean, it's kind of his fault because he escalated. I criticized Eric Garner for escalating, so I criticized this 61-year-old man for escalating. But he was trying to take his guns away. But he shouldn't have escalated. But anyways, under the law, family, police, mental health professionals can all ask for the protective orders to remove weapons, said Sergeant Jacqueline David, woman, with Anne Arundel County Police. Pardon me if I'm mispronouncing Anne Arundel, but that's a Maryland county. When officers began to serve the order, this man, Willis, his last name is Willis, became irate and grabbed his gun. One of the officers tried to take the gun from Willis, but instead Willis fired the gun. The second officer fired a gun, striking Willis, and Willis died at the scene. Such a shame. But you go after people's Second Amendment rights. I don't know. It seems crazy. Anyways, that's one example of a red flag law gone wrong, in my opinion. And I blame the politicians. I don't blame the cops, because the cops are just following the orders. Although you would think that sheriffs would respect the Second Amendment, there are many sheriffs who will not enforce these anti-constitutional laws. And some of them are around the country, right? But apparently not in Anne Arundel. There's a Sergeant Jacqueline David, a woman. And I don't like this mental illness talk regarding the guns. I don't trust the government. family members, doctors, experts. You know what Jesse says about experts, right? Don't listen to them. Or anybody else having the good judgment to know when to enforce a law that takes away somebody's guns. If you know somebody and you take them away on a personal level, that's different. I'm okay with that. But by law, nuh-uh. Because the government's so corrupt, and doctors are very corrupt. Most doctors are fat, just by the way. Remember these people, there was this man from Nevada who called the Tea Party terrorists, Harry Reid. Harry Reid was like one of the top legislators some years back. He got a black eye at one point. He called the Tea Party terrorists. Those are the least terrorist people that you can think of. The Tea Party, for those who don't remember, are a bunch of boomers, like old folks, white people, old white ladies and old white men, usually couples, and they're very patriotic people, and they don't like this taxation without representation. You know, they don't like all this government spending. They freaked out about the crazy amount of spending. Obama jacked it up. He was like the straw that broke the camel's back. But they really didn't like Bush's spending either. And they really just freaked out after Obama, because Obama brought in all kinds of spending, and it was just socialist type stuff. And these people, the Tea Party said, T-E-A, taxed enough already. And they called so those people were called terrorists by, if I remember right, I think he used the word terrorists. And of course, the media smeared them as racists because they were mostly white. But actually, I think their numbers were kind of actually representative of the other races too. It's just the general demographics. They called the veterans, people call the veterans as having PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And there's a lot of people who take antidepressants. They shouldn't take them, but those I picture all being excuses to take away people's Second Amendment. And like I said yesterday, the veterans are often our militia. They often populate the militia. They are often working at gun ranges, training people and stuff like that. And they are a solid line of defense against a corrupt government. If the government were to start trying to take away people's guns, or, you know, imposing or whatever, who knows? And so they want to disarm the people. And you see all this nonsense about they want to take away these AR-15s because those are only for killing fellow civilians, fellow citizens. No, those are for various things, hunting included, self-defense, and of course, country defense, because it's militia. Crazy. These people they're just brainwashed. I just don't like it at all. They're pushing pills on people like crazy. So then they're just bringing complication after complication. People go nuts, more nuts, going on those pills and then coming off of those pills than if they never took those pills. I'm talking about mental illness pills. They hear voices, all kinds of madness. I've never taken them, but this is what I hear people talking about who have taken them. And they go nuts. They go like really crazy when they're off of them. And you hear about it kind of frequently when a crazy shooting like this happens. And now here's something from Slate. Anger causes violence. Mentally ill people are not killers. Angry people are, according to psychologist Laura L. Hayes. I have this headline from Slate. And this is probably a liberal woman. But she's right that anger, not mental illness, causes this madness. And she wrote back in 2014, she's a psychologist, Laura L. Hayes, wrote about the relatively weak connection between mental illness and mass shootings and the much stronger connection between the inability to manage anger and violence. I don't like the phrasing managing anger and violence. Slate reposted this article after the February 2018 Parkland, Florida shooting, the school shooting. She says, violence is not a product of mental illness, nor is violence generally the action of ordinary, stable individuals who suddenly break and commit crimes of passion. Violent crimes are committed by violent people, those who do not have the skills to manage their anger. Most homicides are committed by people with a history of violence. Murderers are rarely ordinary, law-abiding citizens, and they also rarely are mentally ill. I mean, anger is a mental illness, in my opinion, but it's more like a spiritual illness. Violence is a product of compromised anger management skills, so she said. I don't really like her wording because she sounds kind of like a brainwashed intellectual, but the basic point is right. I'd love to hear Jesse interview her, actually. There's a decent point. Anger is mental or spiritual illness, and it affects the mind/body. And then there's this crazy joy when whites do it, when whites do these mass shootings. Jesse said the same thing for when blacks or whites go out of control, actually. The same thing. He always addresses the family issue. But they try to act like, oh, he just calls blacks the thugs. But he's referring to, what is a thug but a poorly raised person? Anyways, let me get to some callers before it gets too late. Samuel, out of Sweden. Samuel, thanks for holding, man. How are you?
Hello.
Hey.
Okay, I don't hear you.
Okay, Happy Men's History Month. Do you hear me?
Yeah, well, it's signal is weak, but I hear you.
Okay.
Yes, Men's History Month. I wanted to call in because I had a very interesting conversation with a Christian, quote unquote. I would call him a fake Christian, and I wanted to talk about that, if it's okay.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, well, I met a Christian person who had been on vacation, and then he told me that he was engaged, and he showed me, and he was engaged with a woman with 2 children with another man, and eventually in the conversation I said to him that you're wrong to marry this woman because you'll be in the way for that her children and their biological father. And it was very interesting, and because eventually he tried to say it was okay and everything was forgiven in the blood of Jesus or whatever. And but it eventually he started to call me fanatic. I was a fanatic because I pointed out the obvious that he would be in the way for that children, and that woman's children and their real father.
Well, you did your job. You warned him that it's not right to marry a woman who already has kids. And so just if he wants to accuse you...
He has done it before, and then he had another woman with children from a previous relationship, and then he divorced her. And I thought, well, perhaps he married her before he was Christian. But now he's a pastor, and he's doing this. And then he talked a lot about his mother. So I said, well, have you forgiven your mother?
Uh-huh.
And wow, he tried to do anything, not tolerate it. But I just kept doing the SLE thing and just asked, have you forgiven your mother? And then he said, well, she has done so much good. But I said, well, forgive her for the little bad she did then. But he didn't want to do it, and he said he was. Right. I mean, it's quite amazing.
You know, I mean, that's you can expect that though, man, because
I accept it. But it's amazing that they talk all this talk Christianity. And I mean, you could call him a warm Christian. And another amazing thing, when I said that love, we came to a discussion that you have to speak about things that are wrong. And then he said, well, you have to show love. But I said, love is to tell the truth. Love is not to, avoid hurting people's feelings. It's to tell the truth. And that's pretty interesting, too.
Right on, Samuel. Just cut him some slack because you really just have to they're not going to get it. Most people don't get it, even when Jesse tells them. So... And Jesse's really genuine.
It's just amazing to see it for yourself. I mean, I have listened to all these interviews on your and Jesse's show, but it's quite amazing to hear it in person, how blind people are. But,
Yeah,
I would like to call out a person in the Men's History Month.
Make sure that you are living it, so that
I'm doing it, and but I want to mention
because otherwise, man, like I've mentioned this before, because you can really easily turn people away, further away from the truth. I mean, you can kind of participate in turning people further, making them entrenched in their own thing, and if you expose them to the so-called truth. And you're not
I'm not going to be silent, it's quite interesting, but because he said you don't have to be extreme, and I said every single person in the Bible, every prophet, even Jesus, they all died. They were all killed for speaking the truth.
That's a good point.
I wanted to mention a person very, very important in the Men's History Month.
Yeah, I appreciate that,
and
Samuel.
And that is Jesse Lee Peterson.
Okay, nice.
That's a very important person in Men's History Month.
Yeah, I agree with that. And he's rebuilding. Well, he's not, but through the message that he's spreading,
he's very important to me. He's very important to everyone here, I guess, who listen here, and to your show also, and to you. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, have a great day.
All right, appreciate it, Samuel. Take care. Lewis, out of Florida, first-time caller. How are you?
Hake, how are you?
Fine, man. How about you?
I'm good. Happy Men's History Month, bud.
Thank you. Happy Men's History Month to you.
So I'm actually calling just for clarification. You called me out, I think, in the chat maybe Sunday.
Okay. Yeah, I remember doing that. I don't remember what over. But anyways.
So first you tagged someone else and said snake. Then you said my name.
Uh-huh.
So I was just like, what? I had said that Jesse has a new gospel. I never said Jesse was false prophet or Jesse's ridiculous, like all those other people were saying.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you were addressing me. That's why I called you.
Okay. Yeah, I think I was addressing you. I am formerly known as 420.
Yeah.
Yeah, in general, like, you don't seem to get it. And so you seem to judge something that you don't get.
So let me ask,
Mm-hmm.
what is it that I don't get?
What Jesse's talking about, the connection to real Christianity that Jesse's
What
really
is real
pushing.
Christianity?
What Jesse's pushing. Forgiveness.
I
No
believe that,
longer
and
sinning.
I don't think that he
No longer
is
sinning.
malicious. But when he says things like the only way to salvation is through earthly father, that's not a basic tenet of Christianity. You can't tell me it is.
Yeah, it actually is, because he explains it quite well, too. He says, he quotes the Bible referring to where it says, how can you love the Father whom you have not seen?
I know the verse, but it also says,
by hold on,
me,
let me just finish it.
Sorry,
let me
ahead,
just finish it, because these people are not hearing it.
Go ahead.
How can you love the Father whom you've not seen and hate your brother whom you have seen? And your brother includes your earthly father. That's usually the first person that you don't love.
Your father?
Yes,
on
you
earth?
stop. Yes, that's the first person you stop loving. That's
I
when the
think you
children.
have
That's
to.
when the children become tainted. When
Of
children
course.
are very lively, free, and then as
Worldly.
they enter into adolescence, they become dull, dark, not themselves, not able to be themselves. I believe that's what's happening.
So, right, but when
they turn away from their
right,
from their
when he
fathers.
says it's the only way by doing my silent prayer, why wouldn't he say that it's the Lord's silent prayer?
But you're not. But
Is
you're
there
not
any
even.
scripture
You're
that
not
backs
even.
that
You're
up?
not really quoting him. You're kind of.
What do you mean?
You say when he says it's the only way by doing my silent prayer.
I've been hearing him say that recently. That's why I said those.
And then
things.
the other thing that you do say about him is, don't follow the Bible, follow me. That's like a total caricature of what
because
he does
tells
not say
people-
that. He says know for yourself.
Right, and if you don't draw a just
And then
conclusion,
so
then what?
hey,
You're wrong.
Hey, he says know for yourself.
Right. So
Mm-hmm.
if I look within myself and find a different conclusion than Jesse, am I wrong and of the devil?
Probably so, actually.
Come on.
I'm serious
So
because
you're telling me that
this reminds
in the
me
book
of
John
like Skip.
and all the Gospels, it never mentions forgive mother. It says forgiveness,
Yeah.
meaning to all.
So you don't want to. So you don't
to.
want to forgive your mother?
No, I didn't say that. I already have.
How do you
But
know?
it's not-
How do you know that you have?
Because I don't have any resentment.
Did you
whatsoever.
go? Did you go to her as Jesse recommended?
Yes, 100%. It wasn't even hard.
So how come you criticize and mock Jesse?
I'm not criticizing that. I'm just saying
Yes,
it's not
you
the
do.
basic tenet. It's not taught.
You're lying when you say you're not criticizing him.
Well, that's fine. You could call it criticism. I don't care. I'm not hung up on words. I'm just saying, why would you call me a snake? It doesn't say in any scripture that you have to go to Father first before Jesus. You're leaving out. You're or bypassing Jesus, right?
No, that's not the case, man.
How not? If you
Do
go
you-
to your
do you
Father
know
on earth
Jesus?
First,
Do you know
Right?
Jesus? Hello?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Do you know Jesus?
Honestly, I can't call myself a Christian. I have unrepented sin, so I can't say that I'm a Christian.
So then why?
I don't even think I
so
should
then
take
why?
that moniker anyway, even if I was.
So then why nitpick over what Jesse
I don't
says?
think it's nitpicking. You're leaving out Jesus, man.
No,
saying
he's
go to
not
your
leaving
Father
out.
first.
Listen.
Yeah.
He's not leaving out Jesus.
How not? He never mentions him.
He
It's
does
always
mention
Mama
him.
and Daddy.
No. He mentions
Come
that
on.
primarily
You
because
hear the guy every day.
Hey, listen. Most Christians take this name of
Definitely.
They
Agree
repeat it.
100%.
They repeat it and all this stuff.
Yep.
And people are traumatized by that because it's like it just deadens the soul to hear somebody constantly name Jesus when they don't
Yep.
have a
Agreed.
clue what they're talking about, you know? And so Jesse brings it home to like reality, and he does mention Jesus. You said he never does. He does.
Well, he does. He says, in the order of things, Christ, and he said Christ came so we'd have peace. But he doesn't really believe in salvation, it seems. It's always like peace.
Yes, he
on
does
this
believe
earth.
in salvation. He talks all the time about salvation.
He does say the word salvation, but it's more about peace on this earth, don't you think? That he talks more about peace on this earth?
Well, yeah, you just have to start with here and now.
You're right. I believe living in the now 100%.
Yeah.
But being saved, I don't believe that you go through your Father first. I believe that those are the fruits of going through Jesus that you forgive, like your mother and father, and anyone who's wronged you.
This is why I would encourage you. One, at this point, like this is getting into what he's about, and at that point, you kind of have to talk to him. And I'm
Absolutely,
like, I'm
you're right.
passing
no, but
on.
I just called you about the
The
when
snake
you called
thing.
me the snake or whatever. I'm just like,
Yeah.
what? Come on. I'm on your side for 99% of this. It's just a few things that he says that I'm like taken aback by. It's not that I think about it.
Yeah, but listen,
it's revealed to me.
There's a lot of stuff that can take you aback, but you don't have to jump to conclusions. You don't have to judge. You don't have to mock. You don't have to
Yeah, but you're doing the
say
same
stuff.
thing by calling somebody a snake, like Skip, like meat eating Skip. Like pot meat eating Skip is not a snake. Hey, come
Huh?
on.
I'm not
The
sure.
dude's a good guy. I mean, he's just he's a good old boy.
Listen.
He's not a snake.
All of us are snakes, and being a snake, acting like a snake, is gonna get you called a snake by me. Hey.
Well, I'm not concerned about that at all. I just called to clarify. So you did call me a snake, right?
Yes.
You meant that towards me.
Yeah, that was towards you.
Okay. And
How do you
and
spell
right
your
now,
first name, Louis?
Louis.
Okay, just making sure.
So while we're on the phone now, do you think I'm a snake?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Because I don't believe that you should go through your earthly father first.
No,
So I'm
it's
a
not.
snake.
It's not about that. You don't believe that
Come on,
because
dude.
a lot of people
That's
don't believe
ridiculous.
that. A lot of people don't believe that. But your criticisms of Jesse are badly.
What's that?
Your criticisms of Jesse, or whatever you want to call it, are kind of not coming from the right place. If you're not living it yourself, then how do you know that he's wrong?
Well, let me ask you this: have you sinned?
No. Hold on.
Becoming a Christian.
Hold on.
Yeah.
If you're not living it yourself, how do you know that he's wrong?
Because I would go through the book of John before Jesse or you any day. And you could make fun of me all you want. I can care
I'm
less.
not making fun of you. I'm just saying if
All right,
that
well, I
hasn't
believe
worked.
the book of John, it doesn't say any of that.
All right, that's fine. If you want,
Matthew
if you
doesn't
think,
say any of that. You're telling me that the
if
prophet.
you think that you have the mindset of those
prophesy
Jews
about it.
during
Well,
that
let me
time,
ask you
because
this, then.
hold
You
on,
think
hold
Jesse
on.
the prophet?
Hold on, man. Hold on.
Yeah.
John was written to those Jews at that time. If you have that same mindset of those
Right,
Jews at
that's
that
what I was
time
thinking
and
you
you
would say.
understand what that is,
Yeah.
that's fine. But I don't see how Jesse necessarily contradicts what the scripture says. I haven't seen any contradiction in fact.
Well, he's leaving Jesus out. When it
No,
comes
he
to
is not. He
forgiveness.
is not leaving Jesus out. Just because you don't hear the word, and I see Skip doing the same thing. Where is he? How come he's not talking about Jesus?
We're not the only ones, man. Come
I know,
on.
but I'm pointing you guys out because you guys are supposed to be
Sure.
friends of the
Fair
show,
enough.
right? You're supposed to be friends of the show, and I'm just
I don't hate you at all. You got me all wrong.
all right.
But you could believe what you want.
All right, cool.
You know, I don't hate Jesse. I laughed at Jesse for weeks at some things.
But hey,
if I hate
you
somebody,
said
go ahead.
that you have sin, unresolved sin, as many of
Yeah.
us do. Then how do you know? And I will answer your question because you asked me an interesting
Sure.
question. But you say that you have sin. Then how do you know that you don't hate Jesse? Because you don't have love. Do you agree with Jesse's basic principle? Like, if you have sin in your life, you don't love anybody.
I don't agree with that.
No?
I definitely love Jesse.
All
I
right,
don't
man.
hate Jesse at
Yeah, I mean,
all.
I
don't have any
look.
anger, resentment. So
Look, I tend to agree with Jesse's thing, where if you have any anger, you are not to be trusted. So I can't really go with.
I could
I
say
can't
that
really
you were angry
totally
for calling
believe
me a
you on that.
snake.
Huh?
hypocritically.
Say that again.
I mean, this becomes subjective now because I think you were wrong when you said that because you don't have it right.
All right.
I don't. For me to be a snake, I have to lie on Jesse. I'm not lying on him. What he has
No,
is a little
but it
different
is.
than
But
new
those.
gospel.
But what you're saying are lies, whether you are knowingly lying or not.
Once again, that's
Because you
subjective.
said, look, let's just listen to me, just follow me. That's nothing what he's about.
He is,
he's
though. He
about.
says, listen,
no,
on
listen.
one
He
show-
says
hold
he's
on,
for
give me a
knowing,
second here.
know for yourself.
Hold
And
on.
all
He
right.
does say that. That's funny, but if you draw a different conclusion, then he's just going to shoot you down. So what's the point in telling someone to look for themselves when they draw a different conclusion than him? He's just going to be like, you lost anyway. That's not helping anyone. When he gets on the air and he tells people the only way to salvation is through my silent prayer
He
and
doesn't
forgiving
say that.
mama
He just-
and going
that's-
to the earthly father, that's a different gospel. Just admit it.
No,
It's not
because
the
that's
same
not.
gospel.
That's not what he says. You're putting words in his
I've
mouth.
heard him say that. That's why I said that. It was
No, he
as a
encourages people to
recent
do the
vintage.
silent prayer.
It's not what?
He encourages people to do the silent prayer, and it is biblically based, because
Well, James, when he says, if
Yeah.
you're not doing my silent prayer, suffer, what does that mean? It means that it's the only way.
no, man,
What do you mean no? Then why would he tell anyone who's not doing it to suffer? That's because, he
Because
thinks
they are
it's literally
suffering.
the only way.
because they are suffering.
How do you know that? You know the heart of every man and woman?
Well, they're calling him with
This is where I
their
disagree.
suffering. They're calling him with their suffering. It's, you know that they're,
Okay, but that's a small audience. It's not the world.
huh?
It's a small audience that calls Jesse and says, hey, this is working. You know, that's temporary. You don't know what happens in a year from now. How do you know they're not suffering again?
All right, man. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting into speculation. I don't know.
So are you. You're speculating that the callers are saved through Jesse
No, I didn't.
because they're doing his
that's-
silent prayer and they forgave Mama.
See, you're. Ugh. This
What?
why
I mean,
this why I
listen,
call
you
you.
can
This
tell
is
me-
why this is why I call you a snake. And you're not
Please,
going to
dude.
see it. That's
Listen,
fine.
Whatever, bro. If
Yeah.
you want to say that, that's your belief. That's fine.
Right.
I don't hate you. I don't hate Jesse.
Cool.
I just don't think that that's the way.
All right.
I've heard him say it's the only way. It's the only way. He said that recently. A couple weeks ago,
All
he
right.
said, the only way to salvation is my silent prayer. That's what he said.
That's.
But
that's
listen, I'm going to let you get to
I
other
really
callers,
don't.
man.
I
Have a
really
good
don't
one. God
believe
bless.
that. I don't believe that. And if he
Listen, I
did
don't
say
wanna,
it,
like,
it's
get
not
into
how
it.
he meant it.
All right, that's fine.
All right.
Have a good one.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, later.
Happy Men's History Month. Scott out of Colorado. How you doing?
I'm doing good, James. That was quite the call.
Yeah, it was interesting. Some people think
You're
that
such
it was not.
You're such a snake.
Thanks, man.
What's wrong with being contrary?
What you talking
You
about?
know? Well, I mean, I think, especially with the internet and these chat rooms, people take things quite literally and oversensitively.
Yeah, man. Like people get caught up in their knowledge, and if it's not exactly how they think that it is, how they think it should be worded, then they're gonna. I think it's a white thing, to be honest. Unfortunately, although I think Lewis might be part Hispanic. But anyways,
I think it's a beta thing.
it is. Yeah, intellectuals are betas.
I think a lot of people try to make Jesse a cult of personality, and they can, lose their critical thinking.
Yeah. Yep.
Wait till
That's
they turn
true.
you to a cult
That's
of
true.
personality.
On both sides, both the so-called lovers and the haters, both the fans and the enemies. That's true.
Again, with Jesse's audience, I don't understand how people can be thick-skinned. He lovingly calls us beta in order to shock us out of acting like women.
Yeah.
So we can start using critical thinking and be men.
Yeah. I'm glad that guy called. That was nice because then we could air out exactly what I meant and all that. And what
And
you
yesterday
meant.
was Skip and Earl.
Yeah, it was fun. It's nice to hash it out. Thank you.
You need a couch.
Say that again? Need a couch?
You need a couch.
Yeah. So you wanted to talk about these shootings, right? You wanted to talk about these shootings?
Yeah. How can you? The whole thing seems to be orchestrated because anytime the Democrats are up against the wall, we have these shootings. Like Jesse said earlier, the one guy said he supported Elizabeth Warren, so that threw a wrench in their works. He's probably a genuine crazy. He obviously killed his friend and his sister.
He didn't end up killing the friend, but he made him critically injured. I don't believe that they're orchestrated. I think that it's just orchestrated by evil, which is spirit. But I don't think that these are false flags. I don't think that the government is doing it and then using actors or anything like that. I think
but remember what the guy from.
But listen, the stage is ripe for this stuff to happen. Like.
Sure.
What do you expect when you destroy the family? And this I read about in the news about this woman who posted on Facebook. She ranted. She must have been pretty emotional and ranted and then took back what she ranted. That, they're promoting all this immorality and godlessness and lack of men and families is basically what she was saying, talking about gay marriage and other things. Drag queen activists or something like that. But her point was not wrong. What do you expect with these people? This guy, I believe that this El Paso shooter, if I remember right, I thought I saw a mention of a LinkedIn page where he's like, I don't like working. What type of he's 21, right? But that's a horrible beta male. Right? So what else do you expect but some people to freak out and mass murder a bunch of people like this? So I don't think, and it's going to happen frequently because the world has gone so corrupt. And these young people.
James O'Keefe from Project Veritas interviewed the guy, and he said that they use mentally ill in order to control a narrative. I'm not saying that there's a grand conspiracy behind this.
What guy did he interview?
Convenient. I forget. He was one of the Democratic Party.
Oh yeah.
You're talking about telling them how they do it.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. Yeah, I included that in one of Jesse's videos that you actually have to click. Yes, I want to watch it because it was called Sensitive on Facebook, but it's about leftist violence and. Yeah, he interviewed a Democrat activist who was about, doing crazy stuff. It wasn't necessarily mass shootings. It wasn't mass shootings that they were talking about, but they were talking about, I don't remember what it was about, but it was basically activism and and making the conservatives look bad. Yeah. But man.
And that's the war.
Yeah, I'll tell you, human nature is quite predictable. So it doesn't really have to be orchestrated because people are quite predictable and weak. Yeah.
So they use these algorithms and they put these things out there. They have not stopped calling Trump a racist. What do they think it's going to do?
Right, and basically Hitler. Yeah.
But look at Neil deGrasse Tyson. I think his point was exquisite, but they knocked him down. They're like, "Hey, black man, shut up.
Yeah, that was too manly.
You're going to make people think."
It was too logical.
This one's awake.
Yeah. Knock him in the head, and he caved pretty quickly, like most people are doing. Thanks to Trump for generally not backing down. All right, Scott.
Especially now, we need Trump to stand up and be stronger. This whole red flag thing is extremely concerning.
Yeah, it is. Man, I appreciate it, Scott.
Have a blessed day, friends.
All right, you too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Sal, out of Denver. Hey. How are you doing? Denver, Colorado. Sal.
All right. How about you?
Doing fine. Thank you, man.
The gentleman before this one who was nitpicking about Jesse said that this and that and the other. I don't know. He doesn't realize that he hates himself at least, so he can't love anybody else, and he doesn't even believe in God or Christ. And see, I think what he doesn't understand is if he listens to other people who say anything about God, they say Jesus every other word. Those are also the people that think Jesus is God and not the Son of God. So there's a problem there. And as Jesse was saying on his show yesterday, if you keep nitpicking, you find a little thing that doesn't seem right, and you get caught up in the nothing, and you don't get anywhere, and you can't do better or be better.
Now it might be too quiet.
He doesn't seem like he's a bad guy. He's just really, really unhappy about something, and he'll have to find a way, or else he'll just keep suffering.
I know he can find a way. I couldn't help it, guys. Yeah, man.
No, I mean, I don't think you were picking on him either. You were
calling
him out in as reasonable a way as you could.
Yeah, I think that a lot of, let's say us, are falling for. We get sucked. It happens to me. That's why I'm saying we get sucked into these arguments real fast, and it just becomes an intellectual ego exercise. And by ego, I just mean that your pride is just so involved in this knowledge of what the Bible actually says and stuff like that. And it's so tempting to get sucked into these arguments. That's one of the things that I respect about Jesse, is that he does not get sucked into these intellectual arguments. That's why I call out intellectualism so much, because you get sucked into this stuff and you're not even living it.
Myself, where I've gotten, tangled up in something that really doesn't matter, and it seems like it's important when you're making a fuss about it, but it really isn't. And knowing how to let those things go and focus on what really matters is important. The silent prayer is important. I'm doing it, and I love it, and I can see why Jesse makes it important to do it. It took a while for me to.
The thing about that silent prayer too is it's not about following Jesse. It's about returning to be alone and wait for God. And that can be. There's nothing less.
With him, through his forgiving and accepting of God, Christ and man, man over children, man over women, and women over children.
Yeah.
So I agree, and I kind of feel bad for people that don't believe in God but are nitpicking over these things, because I think that somewhere in them they believe in God, but they're caught up in the mortal things, like, I have a say in this because I'm a person, or I don't even know how people think. That's the only.
It's really a life warning, because I've seen some of the snakes say that they realize that Jesse is just entertainment. I don't know how they can
Right,
say
sure.
that because there's so many people calling in with their lives changed. But I do
Right, no, and
recognize what
that's
they're
another
coming from
thing.
with
You
that.
know,
People,
people don't call you in a year and say the things are better. They have. I've been listening to the show
yeah,
for over a year, and people have been calling in for over a year. He's just not noticing it or doesn't listen enough or something. But
some people use it as
You're
entertainment.
still out there. Write this stuff down because you may not remember everything. But when someone calls and say, "I called Jesse, I called you a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago," it happens
Yeah,
a few times a week. He
Yep.
needs to just pay attention.
yeah,
And if he's so worried about that stuff, he needs to just quit that and do the silent prayer and realize that God is real and there are no lies.
yeah. All right, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate
You
it, Sal.
have a good morning. I love the show.
Thank you, man. Take care. Happy Men's History Month. Nick out of St. Louis, Missouri. Nick, and then Dennis, and then Brendan, and then the rest of y'all. Yeah, what's up?
Nothing much. My question for today is,
Thanks.
I listen to your show a lot, and
Cool.
I want to know from you what it is like to be white.
That is an interesting question. It is traumatizing, just like I imagine it is to be black. Traumatizing, because
I mean, I've heard, but I don't know if you kind of watch me in the chat room.
I'm not sure
but I
which
don't
one you
really-
are. Are you Malkuth? Hey, Malkuth
Yep,
X. Nice
yep,
to hear
yep, hey.
from you.
going
Yeah, I
on,
would
man?
say that it's, and the reason why it's traumatizing is that white families. It starts with the family, really. It's what is it like to be human, right?
Right.
White families have this. At least my white family had this trauma of like niceness, where you don't fight, you don't blah blah blah, and so we grew up in fear and niceness, which is not goodness. We thought it was, it's a fake love, right? And so that's
Right.
what it's. That's like the simplest, or the first thing that I think of when you ask me what does it mean, what is it like to be white or grow up white.
Okay, fair enough.
And then also we're traumatized in school by being taught about racism and stuff. And so I remember at one point I was a young teen, and every time, because I didn't grow up around blacks, I grew up mainly just around Mexicans and Asians. So like go to Pasadena, there's blacks in Pasadena. And then so you like there's this people pleasing thing among whites, right? Maybe it's all races, but whites have it pretty bad. Where not all, many whites are tough. But anyways, there's this thing where I'm thinking, how can I look not racist? And I'm not even like this. That it plays with your mind when you see a black person because you're traumatized to believe about racism. And if you haven't been around blacks before, then you're thinking about all this stuff that you learned about how blacks and whites supposedly interacted in the past. And you're thinking, oh, let me position myself so I don't look racist. And then like sometimes they ask for money or a change for a 20. I remember I gave the guy a change for a 20 before he gave me the 20. And this old man, I was in Chicago, and this man's all, no, you take the 20 first, and then you give the change. But I wanted to look trusting, right? And that is so white. And so I think that that's one of the things, at least my white experience. Shameful, right?
I got you.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, so it seems like an attribute of being white,
Is
what
it?
you're telling me is feeling like you need to be nice, right?
Yeah. You
Is
laughing?
that is being nice a virtue? I'm not questioning you,
Uh-huh.
but is being nice a virtue?
No, not in that way.
Okay.
That's weakness, man.
Okay.
That
Gotcha.
is compulsion. It's not love, and it's no wonder that blacks judge us because, and they think that there's something pernicious, for lack of a better word. I don't like that word, but they think that there's something lurking beneath, and in a way they're not wrong because it comes really from anger. Fear, that type of fear comes from anger of, trauma of being raised. Your innocence is spoiled when you can't be a real man with people.
Understood.
Yeah.
So with that being said, and I'll let you go after this.
Okay.
with those experiences, where are you as a white man now? Like, going through that, where are you knowing that people, it seems like just for being white, you can be a racist just off. I've heard you say, or people say on the show, there's no way you can prove that you're not racist to somebody who says you are. Where are you now?
I still have beta in me. I think I'm still a little bit of a people pleaser, but the racism thing, you know, I think I kind of got over that real fast because I did see that it was a hypocritical attack on whites. Every time like Hispanics or Asians treated me a certain way in school growing up, I was like, why? Because I'm white? And it became like a big joke to me. But I still did have that people-pleasing tendency. So for me, like the racism thing, I don't think I ever really believed in it. But it never really rang true as something that I suffer from in reality, even though I was, you know, brainwashed to think, oh, let me look not racist. But it never really sunk in as something that rang true. And I know that a lot of blacks are taught it from a young age, so it makes total sense to them, but it doesn't make any sense to anybody else, it doesn't seem like. Although a lot of Hispanics like to cry racism against whites too. And Asians, honestly, but those are the more educated ones that are, you know, and the ones that suck in the media too, because the leftist media down in Mexico and up here too, the leftist Hispanic media is very corrupt, and it teaches that racism stuff. But I don't think that anybody really, if they have clarity of mind on that issue, they really realize that how can somebody else be guilty of something that I could never be guilty of, right? Because most people are like, no, I'm not racist. I just see differences. But
so with that, one thing that I said, I don't know if you've seen my interactions with the chat, but
not a lot.
I don't really identify as white or black, and here's why. I do agree that racism doesn't exist, but at the same time, as long as we continue to identify or label ourselves as white or black, racism will exist. Because to me, when you think of black versus white, what are we talking about? What's the identity of you being white that makes you white? It's not skin color, because you're not white.
It's definitely more than skin color.
White go ahead.
I would say that it's a mixture of the skin and the culture that we're brought up in, because there's definitely a distinct.
What's white about your skin?
I mean, it's light. It's pretty light.
I mean, I'm not arguing, but what is white about you? I think whiteness has to do with a mindset. Blackness has to do with a mindset.
Yeah, I mean, we should overcome culture to become civilized and be whatever we need to be. If we need to be forceful, we be forceful. If we need to be athletic, we be athletic. It's good to be able to be whatever the situation calls for. So, in that sense, I guess I agree, but there's a reality of different cultures, and some are conducive to you know, because most people are in a culture. They're in a fallen state. They're not civilized. They're not past that. And so they do, even though, you know, a lot of blacks are hung up on thinking about race a lot, and then whites are getting sucked into this thinking too. All the other races are getting sucked into thinking that way. When I agree that it should be about principles and God or whatever.
Right.
I just weakened it.
Right on, man. I'm not going to keep you much longer. I just wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, nice call. I appreciate those questions. Those are cool.
Right on, Hake.
All right, take care, Nick. Dennis from Massachusetts, first time call. You've been waiting a while. Thanks for holding.
It wasn't too long. That was an interesting call to you, stuff from a black man. That's how it wasn't white.
Yeah, he doesn't consider himself black or white.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to talk about all this, to talk about red flags.
Okay.
You know, when President Trump gave the speech, he was reading off the teleprompter.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Jesse pointed that out. It's a good
yeah.
observation.
And, we had these 2 shootings, terrible, awful shootings. So when he was talking, I'm wondering if he didn't mean what a lot of people think he means. In other words, like cave into the left with this false flag stuff.
Yeah.
One of the I'll get your thoughts. Just let me just say this.
Okay.
One of the students, I think, of the shooter, had all this information. This kid was putting out information.
You talking about classmates?
About what was going to happen now.
Okay.
And do you think maybe Trump himself thinks that a red flag has to do maybe not so much about legislating law, but about people who see people acting that way?
Mm-hmm.
That would be a red flag, wouldn't it?
That's an interesting point. That would be very nice. That would be very nice because there are people that have suicidal tendencies, right? And you know
right.
somebody who may be suicidal. You keep a gun away from them, right? On a personal level, as opposed to legally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think Trump might have been referring to that more than anything else. No, I see a guy that like the.
I hope you're right.
A student. It came out that the student saw all this. Now, if he just said something to an authority or something, and they did something about it, that could have avoided the shooting.
Yeah, that
would have been a red flag.
That's a nice idea. I hope you're right, man. But there's a lot of Republicans falling for this.
So. I think that's it. And then this white stuff, the white supremacist stuff. They're accusing Trump when they say Trump is a white supremacist. They don't mean they only have one definition.
Right.
That means racist, Ku Klux Klan stuff.
Yeah.
So Trump has to be careful too, because even Republican people, this stuff gets to everybody, but really hurts everybody. So he's got to be careful politically too when you think about it, because we want him to get reelected.
Yeah, we do. So you think he was kissing up to the so-called moderates?
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's very gracious of you, man.
Oh, thank you very much. I enjoy your show immensely.
Appreciate it.
I watch it every day.
Nice.
And, I'm watching. I'm watching now. I got to turn down.
Right.
Anyway, that's all I had to say. But I just wanted to put it out there.
All right. Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah. I don't know if he meant it like that, Trump, with this thing about talking about the red flag laws and stuff, but I think he's going to be more reasonable than how he came off to a lot of people. Hopefully. I think he will. I still have faith in him. People see it as a betrayal. Don't necessarily look at it that way, guys. Jeez. Trump is pretty real. Like maybe more real than the rest of us. I'm going to get to Brendan, but I want to point out Trump called for the death penalty for mass shooters, right? Isn't that interesting? Because the liberals are cracking down on calling him racist for calling for the death penalty of the Central Park Five, who at the time it was thought that they had raped and beaten a woman to the point of losing a lot of blood, and she might not pull through. And that was like a brutal crime. Why wouldn't you want the death penalty for people who would commit a crime like that? And so it's just pointing out that it's not about race. Just because the Central Park Five were black, it wasn't about race. He's pointing out that two of these mass shooters recently, apparently were white or looked white to me. And maybe mixed, but they were basically called white, and he called for the death penalty. And I think that that's a nice thing. If there's no question of the guilt, I think the death penalty makes sense. All right, Brendan, out of New York, how are you?
I'm blessed. How are you, sir?
Fine, thank you.
Men's History Month.
Happy Men's History Month to you. That's nice.
So, I'm just, whether you're referring back to the 80s with the Central Park Five or the recent events in the last couple of days here in America, the real problem is a nuclear problem. When I say nuclear, I mean the nuclear family and the decay of it. Where are the men? Where are the fathers to rear these young men, you know, to have a sense of compassion and to have some moral backbone to, you know, if they want to get these points across that they're so adamant about, that they should be taught that, you know, you never are going to get anything across with violence and vengeance. It's never going to be successful.
Hey, man, speak up a little bit more for me.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
I heard you. I mean, I agree with you about that. They're missing the point with the family stuff. It's like they don't really believe in family and being raised right and morals and stuff like that. They believe in continuing this madness that's increasing this stuff.
So, I mean, what happens is you don't have the father in the home.
Yeah.
Or if the father is there, he's not, you know, altogether there.
Mm-hmm.
And it leaves a hole in the house. And that hole is filled by
Satan.
Evildoers.
Yep.
And mostly it's these government programs that are run by Democrats.
Yeah.
And they take advantage of these young men, and they mold them and manipulate them and groom them, and they implement them in times where they need them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's going on. And all this that went on the last couple of days is a distraction from all the other pressing issues, like Trump bringing Baltimore into the front, you know, of our minds, and how what a horror show that is. All the horror with Epstein and the Nut Squad in New York here, and you know, the debauchery that is the Democratic candidate pool. You know, all their failed policies on the left, and you know, this is what happens. They're allowed to come in, take over our youth when the fathers aren't there to teach right from wrong to the children.
You know, evil people are terrible at calling out evil. And so they're never going to call out all evil. They'll only call out the evil that's useful for them politically.
Yeah.
And Trump calls out all evil.
Yeah, I agree.
And these people only call out the so-called white supremacist evil. They don't mind Baltimore needing constant... There's a thing called Baltimore Ceasefire. It's this black activist group that wants to stop all the shootings in Baltimore. And it's kind of putting a Band-Aid on a gushing wound, right? But there's constant shootings in Baltimore and all around the country. But they don't care about those. They don't. They basically accept it. It's kind of like the national emergency of illegal immigration, right? We've needed a wall for generations, but it's been going on so long, they don't think of it as an emergency. They've gotten used to it. It's
Absolutely.
a shame.
And even in Trump, I'm this big supporter, but the man is just a man.
Yeah.
You know, and he makes mistakes, and it's up for us as fathers, as uncles, as whatever, you know, role you play with your family, that you say, oh, you know, he meant this or he, you know, meant that, but this is not the right way, you know, that, you know, he's fallible. The only person that's not fallible is Jesus, and he's long gone off this earth, but we need to follow his words and his wisdom in how we raise our children and help them to decipher right from wrong, whether that's Republican, Democrat, whatever, you know. And it's just sad to see these young men, their whole lives are gone, and they've taken so many innocent, beautiful lives with them.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, and yesterday in Chicago there were 7 people murdered from what I understand. There's no coverage of that. We got like, you know, why? Because that's a Democrat stronghold? I don't know.
And Trump is right. They're living in hell over there. And and they think that that's offensive for him to say that. I appreciate it, Brendan.
I appreciate you. You're doing a great show, and you're doing God's work and the words of wisdom out. God bless you guys over there.
All right. You too. Take care.
All right. Peace.
Bye. I'll have to get to the rest of the calls tomorrow. I'm going to get to tomorrow. I'll have to cover this Christchurch call, which I was showing at the beginning of the show. Well, Joel was showing it. It is creepy. Attacking the First Amendment. All kinds of countries are doing it. All the major social media companies, Americans, are forsaking us and our rights and joining in. We knew that already, right? But I just wanted to show it to you. It's just disgusting. The imagery and everything, the words. All right, guys. I'll talk to you tomorrow. You can go to thehakereport.com for the notes on this show, and the podcast and the video will be up later today. All right, guys. Take care.